God puts us in nations, in places, not by mistake, but to do a job. What if we opened our eyes to the needs of our colleagues, of our leaders, of our subordinates, and we were a priest on their behalf?
My name is Brett Johnson.
I'm Lynn Johnson.
And we'd like to welcome you to the Repurposing Business podcast that will be coming to you each week.
Welcome to Season 6, How to Work Like God in 31 Ways.
Welcome back to the Repurposing Business podcast. We're on way number 20 of Work Like God in 31 Ways. How does God work? How can we emulate His work? Back in the mid-1980s, I was teaching a class at the Graduate School of Business at University of Cape Town, and the co-teacher, the professor, shared an article about the metanoic organization, an organization that was larger than the mind. And in such an organization, you had strongly gifted people who understood their role and worked together collaboratively. Our principle today is that God's work builds relationships. So when we work, our work should build relationships. There were no individual contributors in the sense of competitors in the Godhead. And Adam and Eve, they were given one of their first assignments was to be fruitful and multiply. They couldn't do it on their own. Each had a part to play. There was no question of them not collaborating. There was no women's movement, no union, no men-only signs. To accomplish the job, they had to be in relationship with each other. Now, why am I so independent? Why is it often that we want to actually take the ball and just play on our own? Sometimes it's the metrics that are given to us, the success metrics. We acknowledge the superstar, the one person, rather than the team effort. So it could be the metrics. It could be our pride. It could be the way that the organization is structured. But more and more, things are structured around teams and teams that build relationships with each other. Now, Christian leaders sometimes say, I'm too busy to build relationships. Too busy doing what? Too busy working for God. Wow, that's a crazy statement, because how can you work for God if you can't work like God? And God's work builds relationships. It's done in the context of relationships. Business leaders, I remember many years ago, a cousin of mine asked me, why don't Christians work together like the Jews? Good question. And so we have to think this one through. In my book, Lemon Leadership, I talk about 5 types of leaders: luminaries, entrepreneurs, managers, organizers, and networkers. And if you're a luminary, you'd be prepared to sacrifice relationship for the sake of the cause. If you're an entrepreneur, you'd be willing to sacrifice relationships for the sake of your opportunity. And if you're a manager, you'd be willing to sacrifice relationships for the sake of your policies, procedures, systems, organization. Networkers don't like to sacrifice relationships because that's the real deal for them. And organizers are well tuned into the needs of others. But if you're a luminary, entrepreneur, or manager, be careful that the way in which you work doesn't sacrifice relationships, because God works relationally. I'll see you tomorrow.